Space Marines, the golden cash cow of Games Workshop.
And they probably stand for about 50% of the entire cash flow of the company.
But Lucas, there is one massive flaw, one thing that Games Workshop introduced in 1993.
And included in the game for a little bit.
But have during these later years completely ignored.
These bad boys are the coolest Legion of the Damned.
A chapter on fire, constantly burning.
Literally.
And today, I guess we're gonna fix it. Covering the history of probably the most unique chapter in Space Marine history.
And then once and for all, bring them back to life.
And I guess we've already fixed everything wrong with Sylvaneth and Orion.
And we fixed everything wrong with the Black Templars.
And everything wrong with Blood Angels. And now it's time to fix everything wrong with Space Marines. Because in 1993, introduced in the Space Marine Codex for the second edition of Warhammer 40,000, the Legion of the Damned got introduced in just a tiny part of the book. Until then, a completely unknown chapter of Space Marines that would appear seemingly out of thin air, able to appear in multiple locations at the same time, and able to shoot flaming bullets that never seem to run out. And according to the second edition codex, the Legion only appears in times of dire need, turning defeat to victory and even protecting the Imperium from some massive catastrophe. And once they're done saving the Space Marines, just like your dad, they leave without a trace of presence or any hint of their history and origin, making them one of the most mysterious chapters in the Warhammer lore. There are many theories about Legions of the Damned. Number one, that they are the now lost chapter of the Firehawks. Once when they were traveling into battle against Drukhari, they got trapped inside of the warp, and since time worked really funky in the warp, they've been trapped there for an eternity, or maybe even more. Becoming changed and deformed during this time. The second theory involves the God Emperor. Because once he's become a godlike creature, the theory is that similar to the Chaos God, he himself is able to create demon-like creatures. Imagine the low point of a battle and all of a sudden from thin air, 7 feet tall, flaming freaking superhuman warriors appear to change the tide and turn defeat into victory. I can't imagine anything cooler in the 40k lore. But at this time, 1993, when the chapter was introduced, there were no official miniatures for the chapter, and it would stay like that for over 3 years. But it was about to change. Imagine it's 1996 and Games Workshop is about to open their 100th store. Quite a massive happening if you ask me. To celebrate this, the legendary sculptor Jess Goodwin took it in his own hand to create the first miniature for this seemingly now mythical chapter. And with that, the Sergeant Centurious, a now legendary, super rare miniature was born. By many people who collect miniatures from the 90s, it is even sometimes hyped as one of the coolest and best miniatures in the Warhammer line. Maybe it's not a miniature that aged with most dignity, but for his time, I guess, for his time. Unlucky for Legions fans out there, it would take another 2 years for Games Workshop to understand how cool this faction is. But in the April copy of 1998 in White Dwarf, full squad of Legion of the Damned miniatures was released. This time not in a limited edition like the Sergeant Centurion, it was available for everyone. But then there was silence. I don't think it was because Games Workshop didn't like the miniatures or didn't like the chapter, mostly because Games Workshop take a lot of time to revamp their miniatures or add more minis to a lineup. But in the January 2010 White Dwarf, the Legions of the Damned got another revamp with a couple of cool figures. A Damned Sergeant, Legionnaire Flamers, heavy weapons guys, and of course a Legionnaire squad. Not the biggest release Games Workshop ever made, maybe not the coolest one, and it's definitely not the best supported one. Because it didn't take a long time for the minis to lose interest. So once Games Workshop moved the minis from metal to Finecast, the minis pretty much just vanished from their lineup. And they have since never been seen.
Now, both of us have been really excited about making something truly epic for this project.
Yeah, but I think you're the one that's been maybe even more hyped than me, so I think I'm gonna let you fix this mini. And we've come to quite a few conclusions of how kind of we want to fix this mini.
Yes. The first one, maybe it's a bit too obvious, but obviously we need to make it a primary sized Space Marine.
That's so much cooler.
Yes.
Number 2, and quite an obvious one, we want to make it look like the Legion of the Damned. So sculpt in some skulls, maybe add some flaming bits, add some flames to the base.
Number 3, there's been a few really iconic and beautiful paint jobs of the Legion of the Damned on the internet.
Yeah.
And we really want to pay homage to those as well as the original one.
One of them being the Darren Latham paint job, which I think is pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah, and then our dear friend Emil On
done a really cool paint job, but stay somewhere in between these two.
Yes.
And combine these two worlds into the perfect mini that we need to fix for Games Workshop.
Because they suck and can't do their job. So we're doing it for them. You're welcome.
You're welcome to get started, Lucas.
Now, if you're a true Squidmar fan, and if you've watched any of the prior videos, you know that the perfect way to start off any Space Marine conversion is to remove the pesky Aquila. And I don't even care if it's not an Aquila when you have the skull in there, I don't care. Watch me. Remove the Aquila. Now, once the Aquila was all gone, it's now time to make the torso look all skeleton-y and nicely. Nice. Starting off, I found a nice skull that I really wanted to attach to his knee pad. I cut off a piece of the skull, then by using the Dremel, I carved a hole in the rough size and shape of the skull. Here we might have to go a bit back and forth to make sure you don't accidentally Dremel a too big of a hole. Now, everyone knows that the Legion of the Damned need to have these baskets filled with flame and fire everywhere. And luckily for me, I found this perfect one in Emil's backlog Mountain of Shame. And I think it might be from the Gilliman kit, which furthermore established this series as the one where we use Primark bits for our conversions, because that's obviously the cheapest way of converting one mini. I cut off the long and weird part of the basket, then drilled a hole in both the torch part and the top of the backpack. I can now cut off a piece of brass rod, and it's gonna make the entire thing more stable and at the end of the day look really cool. Next up will be all of the sculpting. For this project we'll be using the Tamiya Quick Sculpt Epoxy. And no, you can't use green stuff. Green stuff absolutely sucks, and for this one we're not sculpting any tabards, so I'm sorry. No green stuff. The main plan will be to add the classic looking bone shapes and the, of course, truly iconic rib cage. As we said in the beginning, I'm gonna steal some inspiration from our dear friend Emil and add some cool looking flames around the head. The rib cage and the bones I create by adding small sausage rolls of putty, and then by using a round silicone tool I push it around to shape. And if you're ever wondering about the tools or equipment we use in these videos, you can find all of it listed at our website squidmar.com. The flames I create by adding some putty around the helmet, and then by using a pair of tweezers I gently pull and twist the putty, creating the flame-like textures. Next up is to create the base. I previously made a plinth by cutting out a piece of round wood into the length, then adding a shit ton of putty to the base and beating the living shit out of it until it looks like some sort of cool rocks.
But Lucas, that's not a very good explanation on how you did this.
I know, this is just one of those things where you kind of have to fiddle around until it looks good. Trust the process. Practice.
Oh. But Lucas, have you heard about Tacticus?
Tell me more, Emil.
So this video is sponsored by the tactical collectible Warhammer 40k game for mobile phones, Tacticus. And let's just talk about it a little bit from the heart.
Because as YouTubers, to make this business go around and put food on our tables, we need sponsors in the videos.
Yeah, and I feel like we're some of the luckiest dudes in the world, because Tacticus is a game that I've been enjoying myself on my free time outside of having them as a sponsor for this video. And the people making the game are also real fans of the Warhammer 40k universe.
Just like all of us.
Just like we are. So if you want to have a daily dose, a fix injection of Warhammer on a daily basis, maybe when you're on the bathroom, Tacticus is the game for you.
So far, they've got over 60 collectible champions from 15 of the different 40k chapters.
And another great thing about this is that is just the beginning. There is more coming every month, which means that this is a game that gets updated and supported for a very long time, so you can grow with the game. It's of course 100% free to play, and personally my favorite part of the game is the regular campaigns. But there's also a tightly competitive PvP part of the game, and you also have these collaborative boss fights with your clans. So there is tons of things to enjoy about the game. And right now you can enter the code Squidmar02 and get 2,000 gold and a requisition order. Anyway, I think you guys would love and enjoy the game just as well as I do. All you gotta do is scan the QR code that we got up here, or you follow the link in the video description. And if you guys want us to continue to have cool Warhammer sponsors like this, supporting our sponsor by downloading and trying the game that is completely free is a great way to make sure that we can continue doing what we do. And now, Lucas, you're gonna continue building a mini.
I don't wanna.
You have to.
No. The Tamiya putty have rested for about 24 hours now, which means it's finally time to bring out all of the paints and paint some Legion of the Damned. I'm going to start off by addressing the black armor. Here I have to make sure that the entire mini is covered with black primer. Not only will this neat base coat protect the mini, it's also really important to keep that armor still looking black. The first highlight of this black armor will be done by using Storm Vermin Fur, adding this with a controlled chaos stippling method, only applying it to the areas raised upwards. Now I want to bring back some black into the armor. Using the airbrush, shooting some brown and black inks in all of the shadows, and don't be afraid to leak some of the paint over the gray you've already painted. I'm gonna add one more step of highlight to the armor, mixing in about 20% light flesh to the Storm Vermin Fur, then only applying this to the topmost areas and the areas you really want to make pop. With these simple steps, the black armor is pretty much done, and I can now finally move on to the iconic bone stuff. Starting off by covering all of the bone areas with Steel Legion Drab. Then in a similar way to how we did the grey highlights, I apply some Sandry Dust. Then to make the paint job a bit cooler, I decided to add some free-handed toes and fingers to the mini. Topping everything off with a final highlight of some deck tan in the topmost area. And now let's move on to the coolest part of the entire mini, all of the flames and the OSL. When painting the flames, you could just start off by painting them white and then shooting some fluorescent orange with the airbrush. But why make life easy when you can make it hard? So let's start by covering the flames with an orange paint. Once you've painted all of the 5 million layers of orange needed, bring out some yellow and add that to the bottom part of the flames. The further away you get from the core of the fire, the less warm the flames are gonna be, meaning you're gonna move away from the yellow and orangey tones and more into the red spectrum. So here I mix about 50-50 of a bright red and orange and paint it towards the tips. If you wanna go totally bananas and make sure it looks really freaking cool, you can move in with some gray and glaze it towards the tips to emulate the smoke feel of a fire. Since this dude is pretty much a flaming demon space marine dude, I want those flames to be shining through all of the nooks and crannies in the torso. So I bring out some red, orange and yellow, and so I make sure to shove it into all of the cracks. And of course you can't have fire without light emitting from it, but luckily for you, the OSL is really straightforward. I begin by glazing in some orange in the areas that I feel would look cool with some OSL. Here you can totally break the laws of physics and just do whatever you feel like will look the most awesome. Then in some areas that are the closest to the light source, I add some yellow to push the contrast to the max. And bada bing bada boom, you have the finished Legion of the Damned miniature.
So Lucas, in a few seconds it's time for a grand reveal, but first just a massive thanks to you guys for sticking around watching us talk about Warhammer and paint minis.
And if you guys have some brilliant ideas on what for us to fix here next,
yeah, just let us know in the comment section down below. A reminder, if you like these videos as well, please let us know by smashing the like button. That also helps our videos spread to new people. Now
it's finally time
for a grand reveal!
And remember, watch the previous videos in this series. A massive thanks to this week's sponsor, Tacticus. You guys are awesome.
Don't forget to download the game, scan the QR code here. Thanks to our patrons. We love you guys. Have a good day. Bye bye.